Her 9000's game room.
I always found it quite amazing when I was younger how much better a lot of arcade machines were than the consoles you owned at home. This obviously isn't a thing anymore because arcades hardly exist and consoles are as powerful as anything. But one thing they just couldn't seem to get right on the home consoles was a wrestling game. Sure, we had some alright 16-bit wrestling games that'd do at a push, but then in the arcade we had this, WWF Wrestlefest. Now, when I was young, if there was something I loved almost as much as video gaming, it would have been wrestling. I was a particularly huge fan of Demolition. They're a very important tag team because they held the belts at a time when the tag team division was highly competitive. It was absolutely full of talent. They were also the longest tag team title holders of all time back then. And now they've only just been beaten by the New Day. But they still had an incredible career. So here was a game, cracking graphics, cracking sound, in the arcade, up to 4 players, where I could play as my favourite tag team Demolition. What's not to love? You've got Hulk Hogan, the Warrior, Ted DiBiase, the Legion of Doom. It's got a pretty amazing roster for back then. And there's 2 modes to the game. There's the main event, where essentially you compete against tag team after tag team until you eventually take on Legion of Doom and try and get their belts. And then there's what I think is even more fun, the Royal Rumble. Now, the Royal Rumble was always my favourite wrestling match as a kid because I just loved the fact that you saw so many stars all together and you never quite knew who was going to fight who. It was one of the only times where you'd see heels beating up heels and faces beating up faces. And the game gets this perfectly. There is a few weird things to it, like you can eliminate people from a rumble by pinning them. But, it's a good game, it works. And I actually think, for the game's sake, pinning them, as well as chucking them out, it helps. You see, obviously because it was an arcade game, they have to think about how they're going to get you to put money in, and they have to think about how long they want you to stand in front of a machine for 1 credit. And even if you're not losing on the rumble, there's a time limit on the bottom. So to be able to actually effectively beat everyone within the time, there needs to be more ways to eliminate people. Yeah, it's silly in a way having a time limit on the rumble, and if this ever had came to the home, that's something I'd have removed. But in the context of trying to get money out of people and let them enjoy it but not for too long, it works. That's why this is a very good arcade game. And I think the main strength of this game though is that they've really got a handle on the source material. The wrestlers really do look like the real life versions, and they do their moves, but they also do sort of their gestures and things. They really feel like miniature representations of the people. And playing it now, it does kind of take me back to that 80s, 90s WWF wrestling vibe. In some ways it's quite heartbreaking, because you see people like Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, who's sadly, no longer with us. But, it's just a great stamp for this game that it really gets that feeling down. That's sort of the most important part of trying to make a licensed product. Get the feeling, make it feel like it actually is part of that universe, and this game does that hands down in a way that the 16-bit console games for the WWF back then just didn't manage. I've got many, many happy memories of playing this at various seaside resorts with my brother, either going 2-player through the main mode or just thrashing it at the Rumble. And it's also I've played it at various swimming baths and all the other strange places you used to find arcade machines. That's part of life that I really miss. I miss the fact that there's not an arcade machine in every swimming baths and in chip shops, but at least we have MAME, so that those of us that grew up with this kind of stuff can play it through a PC. If they release this game now on the Switch or the Xbox One, I would download it in a heartbeat. I wouldn't mind paying for it. But that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon. However, what is happening is a sort of sequel. A game called Retromania Wrestling is supposed to be coming out this year for the Switch, PS4, Xbox One. and it's basically the same sort of graphics, and it even has the Road Warriors, otherwise known as Legion of Doom, in it, and various other classic wrestlers. I'll be waiting for this with bated breath, but I think unless they get Demolition in it, it isn't going to hold a candle to WrestleFest. I hope you've enjoyed walking down this arcade memory lane with me, and I'm hopeful that I'll make more videos like this about arcade machines I loved in the past. I'd like to finish by saying a huge thank you to Bill Eadie and Barry Darso, who were Axe and Smash of Demolition in WWF. Thanks for all the memories, guys, and it's Colonel 1000 signing off. Keep on gaming.